Mark here from Talking Bass. This week is a special treat for me. I'm going to break down 8 bass riffs from one of my favourite bands and a bass player that I was pretty obsessed with back when I started in the early 90s. The band is Faith No More and the bass player is Mr. Billy Gould. As always, the tab, drum tracks and lesson material are all there over at Talking Bass, so just follow the link in the info below or in the card up there to play along. Also remember to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what bass players or songs you'd like me to cover. I'm planning on a series of videos cataloguing the greatest bass lines, and it'd be great to get some good ideas from you. You never know, I could accidentally miss out on some obvious and great choices, so let me know in the comments what's the greatest bass line ever written in your opinion. So before we start with the first riff, it's worth mentioning a little about Bill Gould's playing. His playing varies between fingerstyle, slapping and pick playing, and no matter which style he chooses, one obvious aspect of his technique is that he hits pretty hard. He manages to get a lot of grind out of his pick playing that you can easily mistake for slapping. He also uses a variety of overdriven and distorted bass tones that provide even more of a driving conviction, and it all really contributes to the overall distinctive Faith No More sound. Bill uses Zon basses and also played an Aria Pro back in the late 80s. His Zon basses have a PJ pickup configuration and are active. So today I'm going to use the Enfield set to PJ, red at the front and green at the back, and I'll crank the treble and bass a touch just to get a little bit more of that Billy Gould bite. Okay, so let's start with a classic Faith No More tune from the Introduce Yourself album, We Care A Lot. Now this is a pretty easy and simple riff, but it's extremely catchy and provides the main hook for the tune. And this is where I think that Billy excels as a bass player. He definitely has a fair amount of technique and, obviously knows his way around the bass, but he has a great talent for creating memorable bass hooks from very limited material. In We Care A Lot, he's just outlining the drum beat, and it's a pretty simple, straightforward beat at that. But this bass line is so distinctive and could be only one song. So this riff all takes place on an open E string, all slapped with the thumb. We've got a pickup on the and of beat 4, so 3, 4 and 1. Then we have and of 2, 3, 3 and 4, okay? So you basically just have to listen to the riff and listen to the drum beat to get the rhythm. So 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and, okay? Now, one thing to bear in mind with this is the length of each note. So they're all pretty staccato apart from one. So when we come in, 3, 4 and 1, you can hear there, we've got a fairly short note. So I'm doing a lot of choking here with this hand. So if you've seen any of my lessons on home position, that comes in handy here. So I've just got this flappy hand here. I'm muting these strings, A, D and G string with this finger, and then just using these fingers to cut that note. So now that note there on the end of 3, that one's held, okay? So, okay, you still cut it off on beat 4, but it's just a little bit longer, so. Okay, now if we didn't do that, it doesn't have the same feel. It's all in that little held note. Okay, that's what gives it that memorable little catch. So that's the riff. So this riff's pretty easy, so it shouldn't take long to get it up to speed. But when you do play it along with the drum track over at Talking Bass, just follow the link in the info below. When you play along with that, just focus on really nailing it with the drum beat. Okay, so locking in there. Okay, so with the track. Next we have a great riff from the opening track of the legendary Angel Dust album, Land of Sunshine. Now this riff is played with a pick and is in a rolling 6/8 time signature. So we're thinking triplet time here. Now, in terms of the notes, we start at the C here at the 8th fret of the E string. So it's all taking place in this area. So we've got the C, then we jump up to the octave. So there's the C at the 10th fret of the D string. Then we come down to the B flat at the 8th fret of the D string, and then down to the G at the 10th fret of the A string. Okay, so we play that twice. Okay, so in terms of the time signature, because we're in 6/8, we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, hold for the first 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's it. So we play that riff twice, and then we play the same notes again, C, C, B flat, G, but with a different rhythm. So this time we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 1 and 3, and then 2 and 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we put all of that together slowly, and we have. So as I mentioned, Bill's playing this with a pick, and he's picking pretty hard, so he gets a lot of snap on those notes, and it really stands out there in the mix. So just start out slow with that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I start on a downstroke, 1, 2, 3. Then I play a downstroke at the top and just alternate coming down. Then when I get back down, I'm actually on an upstroke. Okay, so you can start out pretty slow with it, work it up to speed, and play along with the track. Next, we have probably the most famous tune that Faith No More ever released, Epic from the Real Thing album. Again, like We Care a Lot, we have a very simple outline of the main accents in the drum beat. But once again, it's such a distinctive line. It can only be epic. The riff is played with a pick, hard, and this is one of those songs where it's easy to think that he's using slap technique, but he's not. He's just using a grinding pick. So just as with We Care a Lot, this all takes place on an open E. Okay, and we start with just 2 8th notes, just 1 and, okay? Then we wait until beat 3 and we have 8th note 2 16ths, okay? And that's it. 2, okay? So for the first 2, I'm just using downstrokes. Then on the second set, I'm just playing downstroke, downstroke, upstroke, and that's it. Again, to get this right, you need to play with a lot of conviction, really grind in there with the pick. You don't need to start out that slow, just play along with the original and you should get it. Next up, let's look at Falling to Pieces, another track from the Real Thing album. Now, we're going to look at the short bass break in the middle, which is basically the main verse riff, but before I do, it's worth looking at the opening riff that completely confused me as a beginner when I first tried it. So what's actually happening there is, well, I mean, first of all, we have this. Okay, so he's playing an open A string and hitting it pretty hard to get a fair bit of twang in there, and then it's simply a hammer on to the first fret of the A string, so that's the B flat, and then a pull off, hammer on, pull off, so it's just, okay, so that's all it is, slowly. Okay, but then when you speed it up, you get this kind of boing effect. So in terms of that bass break in the middle, slowly we have the following. Okay, so we begin on this A here, 5th fret of the E string. So we're just moving between the A and the G there, so G at the 3rd fret. Okay, so A, G, A, G, A, G, A. And then there's a little slide down. Then we have this open E, G, open E, so open string 3rd fret, and then back down to the E, which you can play as a hammer-on and a pull-off. And then, so all together. And then we have, so here we have F sharp up to the G, which is 4th to 5th fret D string, then 5th fret to the 7th fret, G to A, and then the A up to the C, so 7th fret D string, and then 5th fret on the G string. So, and you can just hammer those on. So you pick the first note, hammer on, pick, hammer, and then just pick and pick for the top. So, and that's it. So slowly, all together, we have 3, 4. So just from a bit of a theory perspective, what we've actually got here is a bit of a Dorian scale. So it's just worth mentioning that whenever you have a kind of minor thing going on, you know, that kind of minor pentatonic thing, and you get that major 6th in there, so that's the A to the F sharp there, you know, that we get at the beginning of the fill. Whenever you get that little major 6th there, especially when it's leading up to those minor 7ths, which is a really common move, we're pretty much using a Dorian tonality. So standard natural minor, or, you know, harmonic minor would use an F naturally, would use a minor 6th, but in this we're using a major 6th, and you hear it in loads and loads of funk tunes, you know, that kind of effect, and that's what we've got here. So whenever you use that or hear that kind of thing, it's usually using some kind of Dorian tonality. So practice that slowly, get it up to speed with those little hammer-ons in there, really give them a bit of a whack there, and then you can try with the track. Next, let's have a look at one of my favourite ever songs, Everything's Ruined. We're looking at the main verse riff where Billy plays a really inventive, percussive and slinky slap riff, and it's the perfect complement to Mike Bordin's signature tom playing. So slowly the riff sounds like this. So this riff is all played with slap technique, slaps and pops. So we start on this F sharp up at the 14th fret of the E string, and we've got this slap and a slide. So you slap it there and then slide down. Then we've got 2 muted slaps, so 2 ghost notes there. So I'm just holding the hand down lightly over there using that kind of home position. So then we have open E string and then the F sharp there. So we can just hammer on there. So open E string and then hammer on at the F sharp 2nd fret. So then another ghost note and then the F sharp again, okay, 2nd fret. So just get that bit down first. Then the ghost note again on the E string, so that bangy noise, and then we've got the F sharp there popped at the 4th fret of the D string, so. And then finally one last little ghost note there, okay? And then we're back to the beginning, so. Okay, and that's the riff. So this riff might take a little bit more practice than the other riffs in the lesson because we've got a few things in there like the slide, we've got those little ghost notes. So there's a few little intricacies in there, but you know, try it slowly, just listen to what I'm playing there, you know, and then you can try with the track. Next, let's have a look at Crack Hitler, another song from Angel Dust. Now this riff uses slap pop technique and the pops are a key aspect of the song. The slaps played underneath are interesting in themselves, but overall they just act to fill in around the accents. So the pops are going to be the focus here. So we begin with 2 slaps on the open E string. Okay. Then we've got this slide up from the 5th fret to the 7th fret on the A string. So this is D to E. We're going to repeat this several times. And then we pop the E at the 9th fret of the G string. So we're just sliding into an octave, basically. Okay? Then we repeat that little slide and pop another 2 times. Okay? So, all together we have... Okay, so that's it. That's the riff. But the hard part here is actually getting the length of the note there on the pop, because if you listen to those pops in there, the first one is held for a little bit longer, and that's what gives it the feel. You know, if they're all short, sharp ones, then it's just not going to have the feel. So be sure on that first one, you hold that pop there, and then the second, pops 2 and 3, you cut them really short. So we're just stabbing at it there with the pinky. Just get used to that little sharp pop in there. Okay, so. And also, when you come up with the first slide into there, you'll probably want to release the pressure on that on the finger there, on the slid, you know, A string, so that you get a bit more of a clean pop there, because otherwise you're going to get this overall octave pattern. Okay, so. And that's the riff. So focus on those pops, the duration of those, and also when you play the slaps in there, make sure you choke them off, you know, in between. Start out really, really slowly, build up speed, and you can try with the track. Next, let's have a look at another slap riff from the Introduce Yourself album in the shape of Anne's Song. Now, this is another memorable riff that locks in perfectly with the drum beat. So we begin with an open E string there. This is a pickup, so we're on the and of 4 leading into an A octave there. So 5th fret E string and then 7th fret on the D string. Okay, so the notes in there, you have to pay special attention here to all the note durations. First 2 notes are full duration, and then we cut it short with the pop up at the top, so that's very staccato. Okay, then open E to G, again, held and then short. Okay, that's what gives it that feeling there. Open E to the A again, so open E, then 5th fret A string. And then we have open E, G, 3rd fret, open E. Okay, so that sounds like this. Notice how they're all held duration, and then the final one is always cut short. If I didn't do that, if I just held them all, it'd sound like this. Okay, so you can see how really paying attention to your control and the note durations is key to getting the right feel with any riff, pretty much. The second part of the riff is pretty much the same as the first. But this time, when we get to the A, we hold it a little. Then we have B, the 7th fret of the E string, leading down to the open E, which then leads us to move from a G back into our A octave pattern at the start of the bar, okay? So instead of playing the open E, you just play the G to lead up, okay? So notice there, you know how I mentioned this, the note duration, when we actually come up on the second time, because those notes are held longer, it just changes the complete feel. We've got a much more relaxed kind of sound rather than that little agitated, you know, little sharp notes. So all together, slowly. And we're back to the beginning. So play it as slow as you need, just getting used to the note durations in there, and then you can try it with the track. Finally, let's finish with something a little more jazzy in the upper register with the outro riff from Underwater Love on the Real Thing album. The riff here stands out partly because it's played high on the neck, but also because it's got this really catchy melodic hook. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that Billy really works around this a lot, so I've picked out one of the lines that probably most represents the average. And but they all work around the same notes, you just have to play around with this a little. So we begin with an E here at the 12th fret of the E string, and we slide down. Now don't slide down too much, because you've still got to get back up here. So we slide down, and then we have this little rhythm, this little 16th note rhythm up here, at the 14th fret of the D string, so it's that octave E there. Then dropping down to the 12th fret E string again. Okay, so then back up again for the 2 at the end. So that's the 16th note rhythm there, and you can see the rhythm there on the music. So that first part, and like I mentioned, he does vary this up a lot. So this is just one example of what he might play there, but he plays all different things. So just try this one and then just mess around with it. So for the second bar, again, we start on the E and slide down. And then we have this melodic hook. So, okay, so we've got F sharp to G up there, 11th fret to 12th fret G string. So you can play that just as a hammer on. And then we've got this little chromatic ascent here, C sharp, D, D sharp, and then up to the E, okay? So 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th frets on the D string. Now, when he plays that little chromatic ascent, he tends to play the first 2 notes of it quite short. And then when you get to the D sharp at the 13th fret, he plays that a little longer. So, and then that final E is just to bring us back around. So that's almost a ghost note. So, and then we're back to the beginning of the riff. So that second part again. So, as I mentioned, this one's a little tricky because it's got a few rhythms in there to deal with, and we've got this slide and then this jump back up. So you need to take this quite slowly to begin with, just to get used to the positions. So okay, try it slow and then just build up speed, and then you can play it with the backing track. Okay, Okay, so that's Faith No More and the great Billy Gould. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for regular lessons every week. Remember to leave a comment as to which bass lines I should use in the upcoming Greatest Bass Lines series, and also be sure to visit Talkingbass, where you'll find hundreds of bass lessons, courses, downloads, a free membership, ebooks, everything bass. So go check it out, and I'll see you next week.